Hi, and welcome to this episode where I, the listening detective, get the opportunity to interview Helen Rowe all about limiting poverty in Britain. And today's subject, we're talking about why end poverty in Britain. So over to you, Helen. Why should we end poverty in Britain?
Well, thank you, Sheryl. The main reason is that poverty affects every person in this country, irrespective of how much wealth you have. In some way, you will be impacted by it. Now, Keir Starmer recently said that his main focus, if he becomes Prime Minister, is growth, growth, growth. And I don't see how you can grow an economy with 14 million people living in poverty. Because if you are going to have a growing economy, people need money in their pockets to spend. And we have not just 14 million people living in poverty, but also of that, 4 million are children. And poverty becomes intergenerational. And also a lot of the issues that we want to improve in our society, things like the National Health Service, lower crime rate, the better education system and a stronger economy, all of these will be relevant in the next general election. But if you eliminate poverty, those then automatically become better, they ease in more equal societies. So eliminating poverty in Britain is not a kind of soft and fluffy subject. It is absolutely essential to the forward momentum of our society, because we really are in a quagmire at the moment in terms of our social and our economic systems. And we need to lift people out of that. And eliminating poverty is right at the very core of what everybody wants from our country. So that's why I think it's important.
And definitely, because I've been glued to your book, and my husband and I have been having conversations with the book that's in the corner of the screen, if you haven't spotted it, Eliminating Poverty in Britain by Helen Rowe, is I know that it's been close to my heart, but you said it impacts everybody. And you said I was okay to ask you challenging questions. Mm-hmm. So, the rich, the aloof, the millionaires of the UK, how does poverty impact them?
Because they will still need at some point to use the National Health Service if they get into a crash, saying they get into a car crash. They will still need excessive levels of security because crime still impacts them. They still need a growing economy for their businesses to thrive. So, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You still want to be able to pass on a better society for your next generation of children. So it does matter, irrespective of how much money you have.
Yeah. And I think that was the big thing that came out for me when I was reading the book. I kind of think I've known it and I've been curious. So obviously, that's why I was pulled in to read the book and talk to you anyway. But it is the first thing came to me is actually the impact it has on us when we're walking the streets of London or any place really where you've got the homelessness.
Yeah.
But whether or not you go past and think, do whatever you do, whatever your emotional response is, you've got that. But it is that thing that you said about when you're living in poverty and you haven't got the nutrition and you will do anything if you need to feed your family, which could result in crime or prostitution, as you talked about, of course, they then have a knock-on effect on the systems that sustain the country, as you mentioned, NHS and policing, etc. For me, that's been the big sort of takeaway is it's looking at it systemically and how actually nobody is excluded from the impact. It is something that we are all part of and therefore can all play a part. So is there anything else about the impact on everybody when you're talking about, why ending poverty in Britain is so important for us all?
I think it's also the idea of just a future worth living in and a society worth living in. The last decade and a half has been incredibly tough on our society with, Brexit, the crash, the austerity years, and so on. And there is a real sense of stress and misery in a lot of quarters. And we don't deserve that. Our society deserves so much better. And I think in particular, we don't realize how much we are missing from our society for as long as we are perpetually alleviating poverty rather than eliminating it, because alleviating poverty is incredibly expensive, morally and financially. And if we are then free to do a whole load of other things that we don't realise we're missing out on in our society because we're perpetually dealing with the impact of poverty.
Yeah. Well, even the impact we saw on the NHS in the lockdown and pandemic and COVID, effectively that was happening. And I hadn't kind of appreciated it until I read your book, that's been happening with, with 14 million in poverty. They're obviously affecting the workload in the NHS, which affects our nurses, which affects our doctors, their well-being, their health as well, which then affects their ability to care for us when we need them too. So I think we've kind of encapsulated, why ending poverty in Britain is important and that it actually affects everybody. So I just want to invite you, if you've watched this video and you're thinking, there's nothing I can do, then please stay tuned. We have another 4 videos we would like you to watch. But whichever channel you're on, please click the like, follow, subscribe or share, because as Helen says in her book, it's all about us getting this debate going. And the more people we get involved in the conversation, the more chance we have of actually creating a plan, which Helen has cleverly put together, that could be achieved in just one term of office from the government. So a 5-year plan. But we all have to be listening. We all have to be playing our part. And I know that I've already started to think differently about how I market my business, how I price it, how I make it accessible to people who don't have the internet, for example. But it's us that are on the internet that have the money right now, that have the opportunity to spread the word out there. So please like, subscribe and share, and watch out for the next video where we'll be talking about how do we actually eliminate poverty in Britain. Thanks for tuning in today.
Thank you.